know it. You can almost walk there from here. We're so close. We are most of the bell ringers from the church, and this idea for today's concert for you came from Flossie Meyer. Back in November, she talked to me about coming and doing something for you at Christmas. And Christmas was really busy, so we said, well, maybe January. And then by the time we got it scheduled, it was this weekend. So Flossie was in the hospital recently, and we called her and we said, Flossie, what do you want us to do about today's concert? Do you want us to wait? Do you want us to bring it to wherever you are? And she says, no, just go ahead with it as scheduled and bless my friends at Knoll View. So this is from Flossie and our hearts to you. Each one of our ringers has a little introduction to the songs. We have 11 songs for you today using a combination of handbells and chimes. They have a very different sound. And I'll let these guys introduce them. First, I'm going to let Diane, some of you saw Diane earlier today. She's going to start us off.
Hey guys. So, I'm going to give you a brief history and introduction to handbells. The first tuned handbells were developed in Wiltshire, England between 1696 and 1724. The handbells were developed so that tower bell ringers could practice bell ringing without disturbing their neighbors. Handbells were taken to the U.S. from England in 1902. In 1935, George Schulmerich started his handbell company in Bucks County, PA. This is the largest producer of handbells in the world and are the bells that we use to play on. They offer up to 7 octaves of high-quality bronze, which would consist of 85 bells. Our choir currently uses 3 to 4 octaves, including sharps and flats, which is somewhere between 30 and 40 bells. So, an ordinary bell can be rung in any direction. A handbell, however, has a clapper inside, and to ring the handbell, the ringer moves it in such a way that the clapper strikes the inside surface of the bell. It's usually held at the shoulder, and the bell is moved upwards with a swing, and that makes the sound. So that is one. This happens to be D. So the tone continues to resonate, fading until it stops completely, where the ringer stops it by damping the bell on the body for added surface. Handbells are relatively easy to play, to learn how to play, and those not particularly gifted musically, which I can attest to, can play them. From children to adults of all ages, performing handbell music requires great cooperation, collaboration, and communication, and lots of practice. We will be using several techniques today, from normal ringing to malleting, shaking, and swinging. We will also be using chimes. Handbells offer a sound unlike any other instrument. They are beautiful to listen to and attractive to look at. They create an emotional connection between their sound and the human heart. Our first song that we will play is Venite Adoremus, meaning, come, let us worship the Lord.
Most everybody knows Amazing Grace. Hi everyone, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
This is a little snippet about the song Amazing Grace. The gift of forgiveness is often best appreciated by those who need it the most. The Reverend John Newton experienced this truth firsthand. His tombstone tells the story. John Newton, clerk, once an infidel and libertine, a servant of slavers in Africa, was, by the rich mercy of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, preserved, restored, pardoned, and appointed to preach the faith he had so long labored to destroy. These words were written by Newton himself, a testimony to God's transforming power. After years as a hardened slave trader, that wretch met Jesus Christ and abruptly turned to defend the gospel he had so long despised. Throughout Newton's years of ministry, God's amazing grace remained central to Newton's thinking. When it was suggested he retire at age 82, due to poor health and a failing memory, he responded, "My memory is nearly gone, but I remember two things, that I am a great sinner and that Christ is a great Savior." Amen.
Amen. Amen.
That you know, like Amazing Grace. We love it if you want to hum along or sing along to that. You'll notice through the course of the program there are a few Christmas songs in there because that's what Flossie and I were talking about before Christmas. But some of them, like Hark the Herald, when we get there, has some really interesting bell techniques in them, and we wanted you to hear some of the different things that the bells can do. So I hope you don't mind a couple of Christmas songs in March.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen, and I'm going to talk to you about our next song, which is called Beautiful One, which was written by a contemporary British songwriter named Tim Hughes in 2002. And here is his story. He says, "I wrote Beautiful One while I was on holiday. We had been ministering in Australia and had a few days off at the Great Barrier Reef. I read that passage in Isaiah 53 that talks about the Messiah as having no beauty that would attract us to to him, nothing to make us think how incredible he was. That description of him as the suffering servant really struck me, because we often talk about Jesus being glorious, awesome, incredible. He is the Son of God, all-knowing, all-conquering, all-powerful. He gave up everything to come walk among us on earth. What humility. We would have passed him on the street and not thought anything of who he was. But we know how beautiful he is, and we often sing about that attribute in more of an intimate, slow, and tender way. I thought to sing Beautiful One as a strong, powerful statement in a more upbeat, declarative way was a wonderful thing that we as Christians could do.
Sorry, I'm tucked in the corner. I thought I'd come out and say hi. My name is Bruce Piper, and our next song is called Simple Gifts. The song was largely unknown outside of Shaker communities until Aaron Copland used its melody for the ballet Appalachian Strength, one of my favorites personally. First performed in 1944, Copland used Simple Gifts as a second time in 1950 in his first set of old American songs for voice and piano, which was later orchestrated. Simple Gifts was written by Elder Joseph while he was at the Shaker community in Alfred, Maine. These are the lyrics to his one-verse song. "'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. Turn, turn, will be our delight, till by turning, turning, we come round right."
And that melody has also been set to more modern lyrics, The Lord of the Dance, if you're familiar with that song. Those of you who are not ringing this number, why don't you join the audience? There you go. Hello.
How are you? Oh yeah, thank you for coming. How are you? How are you? Good to see you.
like a clock chime, right? All of that, they are letting their chimes vibrate through that so that the sound carries over each other. But in the, don't turn the page yet, I'm gonna come back.
Okay.
Most of the song, they have to stop the bells from ringing. That's why they hit their shoulder either with the chimes or the bells. And because if they let that go the whole time, it would sound really strange. Can you play 33 to 36 without dampening, okay? Without dampening. So this would be the improper way of playing it, okay? And you'll see how mushy it gets when they don't stop the sound. I just want you to know what you're hearing. 30, so 4 measures, 33. 1, 2, ready, and. See how it's hard to hear the melody in that because you have so much sound on top of each other, on top of each other. So that's okay if you're listening to the clock chimes at the end. Now, there's another technique they did in the middle, so 37. Watch this one where most of these guys are playing and then dampening pretty quick, and you get this kind of little boom, boom kind of sound. Listen for that. 37 to 40, okay? 1, 2, 3, 5. Do you hear it? A little whoop.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? All kinds of different things you can do. Okay. Who's next? Right there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Bev, and I played handbells a long time ago before they have this thing in another location. This song that we're going to be doing for you is a very favorite, famous Christmas carol. I'm sure you probably heard it this a couple months ago. It was written, the words were written by Charles Wesley, who wrote over, they say, 6,000 hymn texts. But this one is probably his best known. It's about the shepherds joining with the singing of angels, and they proclaim Jesus. We discover who Jesus is and what his coming means. It's filled with a lot of powerful scriptural ideas, and you can spend a long time just exploring all the stanzas in this. This is why Jesus came. The last 3 lines tell us. He came to face eternal death, so we would not face it. He could raise us with him. He could regenerate us into the children of God. And for this and so much more, he deserves our praise. Glory to the newborn King. But the music itself is beautiful, in my opinion, and most people's. He was Felix Mendelssohn, as we know him. He composer of the music for Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and he was born in Hamburg, Germany, which is a place close to my daughter's heart right now. The son of a Jewish banker, he was also the grandson of a prominent Jewish philosopher, Moses Mendelssohn. In 1811, which was only a little over 200 years ago, the French occupied Hamburg, and the family fled to Berlin, where they joined the Lutheran Church and added the name Bartholdi to indicate that they had become Christians. Please enjoy Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
some new techniques there, right? The shaking, the drilling, and also in the middle, you had the little, which is actually, can somebody show how you did that? The eighth notes in the middle. So their thumb is actually on the brass part of the bell, so it kind of muffles it. All right? Giving you another sound.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
My name is Ginny, and our next song is Sweet Hour of Prayer. According to one account, the author of this hymn was a blind preacher and a curio shop owner in Colesville, England. He carved ornaments out of ivory or wood and sold them in his small store. He also wrote poetry. One day, when the local minister stopped at the store, William Walford, the blind shop owner, mentioned that he had composed a poem in his head, and he asked the minister to write it down for him. 3 years later, that minister visited the United States and gave the poem to a newspaper editor. Unfortunately, no one knows what happened to William Walford of Colesville. Researchers have found a William Walford, a minister of Homerton, England, who wrote a book on prayer that expresses many of the same thoughts that are given in this poem. That may be the true author. But the identity of the hymn writer is not as important as knowing a God who hears and answers prayers. In our hymns, prayer is frequently rhymed with care. This is appropriate, for whenever we are aware of care, we should be equally aware of prayer. God cares about us, and that motivates us to prayer.
Some songs have only chimes. That one had both, which keeps these guys on their toes. Because it's not easy to go from one to the other. There's a completely different playing technique. It's a different mental process. And even little things like the very ending of a song. If we don't all stop at the same time, it's not nearly as polished an offering for you guys. So all of the little music things that add up to make this an interesting thing. Also with bells, it's the only instrument I can think of that takes 12 people to play a song, right? Usually, if you are a clarinet player or a trumpet player or something like that, you might be part of an ensemble, an orchestra or a band, but you can play the whole melody on your horn, right? Or if you play the piano. These guys have like 2 notes of the melody. So it'd be like if you were playing Row, Row, Row Your Boat gently down the stream, you might just be playing the boat. And you have to listen to everybody else so that the melody depends on all 12 of us working together. So it is in some ways easier and in some ways harder than other instruments to play because it takes all of us together. All right, I believe Josh has our next introduction for you.
Hello everybody, my name is Josh, and the next song that we will be playing is Parade of the Tin Soldiers. The Parade of the Tin Soldiers, also known as the Parade of the Wooden Soldiers, is an instrumental musical character piece in the form of a popular jaunty march, written by German composer Leon Jessel in 1897. The Parade of the Tin Soldiers was originally composed for solo piano. Jessel later published it for orchestra in 1905 as Opus 123. Today, it is also a popular tone for marching bands, concert bands, and small orchestras, and for extremely diverse alternate instruments as well. Enjoy Parade of the Tin Soldiers.
Hello, my name is Liz. Our next song is In the Bleak Midwinter by Christine Rossetti. Verse 1 says, in the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago. I think we can relate to that right now. Christina Rossetti was the daughter of an Italian immigrant to England. She and her brother were involved in the world of art and literature. She never married, though by all accounts her beauty was quite stunning. A devout Anglican, Christina was engaged once to a Catholic who promised to convert. When he had second thoughts, however, she broke the engagement. This poem, set to music 12 years after Rossetti's death, is disarming in its simplicity. Powerful notions are presented in the starkest of images. Snow on snow shows the bleakness of the earth, which stands hard as iron. We see the angels throng in the winter sky. We are then immediately transported to the stable, where Mary worships her beloved son, as any new mother would, with a kiss.
more songs will be done before 3 o'clock.
Good afternoon. I'm Leslie, and our next song is Echoes of Westminster. I'm just going to share something about the gloves. So I'm putting my gloves back on because when we ring bells, we use gloves. But when we ring chimes, we don't use gloves because they're slippery and we don't want to hit our audience. You're welcome.
Handbell gloves are even made, some of them with little rubber dots on them, so that we can grip better.
So the Westminster Quarters is the most common name for a clock chime melody. The number of chime sets matches the number of quarter hours that have passed. It's known as the Westminster chimes, from its use at the Palace of Westminster or the Cambridge Quarters, from its place of origin, the Church of St. Mary the Great, Cambridge, England. The full hour chime is followed by one strike for the number of hours by Big Ben. One strike for 1 o'clock, 2 strikes for 2 o'clock. This chime is traditionally believed to be a set of variations on the 4 notes that make up the 5th and 6th bars of I Know That My Redeemer Liveth, from Handel's Messiah. The chime itself was written in 1793 for the new clock in Cambridge. In the mid-19th century, the chime was adopted by the clock tower at the Palace of Westminster, where Big Ben hangs. Hence its fame spread. It is now the most commonly used chimes for striking clocks.
What a Friend We Have in Jesus by Joseph M. Scriven. Joseph Scriven watched in shock as the body of his fiancée was pulled from the lake. Their wedding had been planned for the next day. Reeling from the tragedy, he made up his mind to immigrate to America. Packing up his belongings in Dublin, Ireland, he sailed for Canada, leaving his mother behind. He was about 25 years old. 10 years later, in 1855, he received word that his mother was facing a crisis. Joseph wrote this poem and sent it to her. Mrs. Scriven evidently gave a copy to a friend who had it published anonymously, and it quickly became a popular hymn, though no one knew who had written it. Meanwhile, Joseph fell in love again, but tragedy struck a second time when his bride, Eliza Catherine Roche, contracted tuberculosis and died in 1860 before their wedding could take place. To escape his sorrow, Joseph poured himself into ministry, doing charity work for the Plymouth Brethren and preaching among the Baptists. He lived a simple, obscure life in Port Hope, Canada, cutting firewood for widows, giving away his clothes and money to those in need. He was described as a man of short stature with iron gray hair, close-cropped beard, and light blue eyes that sparkled when he talked. Ira Sankey later wrote, "Until a short time before his death, it was not known that he had a poetic gift. A neighbor, sitting up with him in his illness, happened upon a manuscript of What a Friend We Have in Jesus. Reading it with great delight and questioning Mr. Scriven about it, he said that he had composed it for his mother to comfort her in a time of special sorrow, not intending that anyone else should see it. Sometime later, when another Port Hope neighbor asked him if it was true he composed the hymn, his reply was, 'The Lord and I did it between us.'"
folk tune from the district of Salzburg. The tune appeared for the first time in 1865 in a folk song collection of the founder of the Salzburg Museum. The words describe the peace of the infant Jesus and his mother as the baby is sung to sleep. Soloists and choirs have long enjoyed singing published arrangements of this carol, making it familiar to many congregations. Most performances of this carol treat it quietly and gently as a lullaby. We play it on chimes today as our final piece, reflecting the gentle lullaby.
Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.